Speaking of natural disasters, as I had said earlier, this is not my first rodeo. And unfortunately, hurricanes, wildfires, earthquakes disproportionately affect our seniors. In Irma, I actually lost 2 clients that passed away, not because of the hurricane, but because of things the hurricane caused, disruptions. I had one client that was stuck in a house. If you guys remember Irma, it was really hot. Here right now, we're getting temperatures down in the 70s and 80s, and it's incredible. But in Irma, it was in the 90s, and humidity was sky high. We didn't have that dry air that moved in like we have over Ian right now that has moved in over us. And the heat just got to her. And then I had another client that evacuated to Orlando, and just the disruption in the med schedule and all that other stuff was a lot. And she ultimately ended up passing away, the stress and all that stuff. So if anyone tells you, I don't think anyone would, but you guys probably know this, stress does have a physical and mental chemical effect on the body, right? I mean, stress mentally, physically, it impacts your health negatively, unless you're working out like we're going to do here. I want to talk about today, because we have so much going on with the hurricane, natural disasters, things like hurricanes, and our senior population. And I pulled some numbers here to find out just what is the actual cause and what are the effects on our senior population when it comes to natural disasters, more specifically hurricanes. And there's a few things you can do. As you can imagine, these natural disasters disproportionately impact our seniors. If you already have a hard time moving, think about how hard it is to move whenever you have debris or water or slick surfaces. So my main point to this right now is that if you have a parent, or maybe you're 65 and older, you really need to seriously consider evacuating if you're anywhere near that cone. You just don't know what these things are going to do. You've got no power, you've got no lights that are going to help light the way. As I had said before, temperatures are going to skyrocket. Here's one. Think about people who are on oxygen, right? And let's say you don't have access to electricity. When that power goes out, you may have a portable, but once that battery goes out, how are you going to recharge this thing? Now, if you have a generator, you're one of the fortunate ones, but most people do not. So these are things that most people will not think about before or prior to a natural disaster. I was talking with a friend, and she was telling me they had a neighbor that was going to try to evacuate Wednesday morning. They were going to try to get a flight out Wednesday morning. And I said, well, you might want to change that. This was the Friday prior. I said, you might want to change that to as soon as possible. And sure enough, they changed it to Saturday, I heard, and got out. So that's good news. The change in your routine, right? I mentioned the med schedule. We mentioned your sleeping and napping schedule. Irma, it was so hot, it made it hard to sleep. Then you've got, the walking and the moving around is gonna cause an issue. One other thing, malnutrition. And we have already spoken about how sarcopenia causes a big issues in our ability to strengthen our bodies, right? And so sarcopenia is just malnutrition, just not eating, lack of protein, guys, and that's what our muscles are made out of. Think about the ability to get food, heat food, cook food. And if you're a senior that is not moving very well, this is going to put you at a higher risk, all right? So when a hurricane comes, sometimes tornadoes can't help, wildfires sometimes can't help, they move really fast. But I would strongly urge you, if you have elderly parents or yourself, anytime a natural disaster, a hurricane specifically, is coming, if you can, take all these things into consideration and get out of there, all right? I have in your email, I have some pretty good statistics. A couple of things I wanted to mention. Chronic illnesses and health, right? And when it comes to natural disasters, we've already talked about this other stuff, but did you know that 80% of elderly people have at least one chronic illness? And many elderly individuals have 2 or more chronic illnesses. 80%. How is that hurricane going to impact those people with chronic illnesses, right? That's pretty impressive stat there. We've talked about mortality. We've talked about the mobility issues. We just jog through here. 28% of households reported that at least one elderly individual was prevented from receiving routine or expected care for their pre-existing conditions. What if you're on dialysis? Right now in Lee County, they are evacuating 3 hospitals because there's no water. Think about that. The National Guard is involved now trying to evacuate these patients as Lee County scurries to get this water pressure up. Isolation. You're cut off. Think about depression. We've talked about the impacts of depression on the brain. We know how important the brain is to our balance. And just the total vulnerabilities. So, guys, I just wanted to bring this up. Maybe I've mentioned something that you haven't thought of just yet. But anytime we have a natural disaster, if you're 65 and older or you have an elderly parent, please be very diligent and watch the news. I understand it's really hard to track, but do consider getting out, especially if there's a mandatory evacuation. Take those seriously, okay? All right, let's get started.